All right, so we're back for another deep dive. Got your Mumbai edition of the Economic Times ready. Today is Tuesday, January 14th, 2025.
Yep, all set. Lots to unpack today, as always.
And we're going to skip right past those ads, right? Get straight to the heart of it. The global markets, the latest tech, what's going on here in India,
Yeah,
the stuff that matters.
exactly. And more importantly, not just what happened, but what it all means. How it might actually affect you.
Okay, so let's start with the U.S. Looks like the stock market is a bit shaky today. NASDAQ down more than 1%, S&P 500 at a two-month low.
Right, and even those U.S. 10-year Treasury yields, usually pretty stable, they're up, hitting a 14-month high.
Now, the article mentions strong U.S. jobs data. But isn't that usually good news? How's that impacting the market negatively?
Yeah, it's a bit counterintuitive. Basically, investors are thinking, strong jobs data, maybe the Fed won't cut interest rates. Lower rates usually boost the economy, so the thought of them staying put or even going up is making some people nervous.
Makes sense. And those nerves, they tend to spread, don't they? Especially from the U.S. market.
Oh, absolutely. Global ripples. So a U.S. slowdown could hit global growth, which could then affect Indian exports, and that's not even factoring in.
Bro.
Exactly. His policies, especially on trade, are adding another layer of uncertainty. Who knows what's going to happen?
Speaking of uncertainty, our very own rupee hit a record low today. Breached that 86.50 mark against the dollar.
It's rough out there for the rupee. RBI's trying to stabilize it, but there are concerns about overvaluation, meaning it's been trading higher than what our economic situation really supports.
Imports are going to get even pricier.
Most likely, yeah. And you know what that means? Higher prices for all of us.
Not the news we want to hear, especially with everything already going up. And economists are predicting even further drops for the rupee. Some even say 88 to the dollar by March end.
Tough times. Okay, let's shift gears a bit. China's making some moves that are impacting Indian manufacturers.
All right, these export curbs on machinery, they're hitting sectors like electronics, solar panels, and even EVs.
Big time. The article specifically mentions Foxconn, BYD, Lenovo. They're all facing hurdles in expanding their production in India.
And Indian companies too, right?
Yeah.
Dixon, Lava, Micromax, even those with Chinese partners.
Yep. It's all part of China's strategy, I'd say. They're protecting their manufacturing dominance, maintaining that edge.
Strategic, but not exactly friendly. What's the impact going to be for us, the consumers?
Well, we could see delays in product launches, maybe even higher prices as those supply chains get messed up.
Right. And all this while our own economy is dealing with its own set of challenges. Growth is slowing down, and the government is looking for ways to jumpstart it.
Yep. Tax breaks for the middle class to get people spending, tariffs to protect our industries.
Boosting job creation, attracting investment. It's a lot to juggle.
It is. And then there's this whole other force shaking things up globally. Artificial intelligence. This article predicting banks replacing almost 200,000 jobs with AI in the next few years. It's pretty mind-blowing.
It is, but the article makes it clear, right? AI is mostly targeting those repetitive tasks, the things humans are doing that could be automated.
Right. So yeah, some jobs will go, but AI could also create new ones, freeing up people for more creative, complex work.
It's about adapting, evolving alongside this tech.
Exactly. Speaking of which, have you seen what OpenAI, those ChatGPT folks, are up to? They're building actual robots, AI-powered robots.
That's wild. But there's another article here saying that India's lagging behind in adopting AI gadgets. Less than 10% of smartphones shipped here last year were AI capable.
It's true. Fewer than 10%. And lots of retailers aren't even stocking AI PCs. They're saying there's just not enough demand.
But why? I mean, AI has so much potential.
I think it comes down to a few things. One, people need to see AI as useful in their daily lives, not just some cool tech. Then there's the hardware. Current AI needs a lot of power, which is tough for a lot of devices, especially the affordable ones.
So we need those AI models to become lighter, more efficient.
Exactly. And people need to understand what AI can really do for them.
Education is key. Okay, let's switch gears again. Politics. Trump's second term is about to begin, and there's a lot of anticipation and maybe some anxiety about what it means for the world.
Yeah, and the Economic Times is highlighting the potential impact on India-US relations. We've seen some shifts in the relationship recently, but with Trump back, who knows?
The article points out a few potential issues, right?
Yeah, the H-1B visa debate, for example, that's a big one for Indian tech workers in the U.S. Then there are the trade tariffs, another Trump favorite, could impact our trade big time.
Definitely a lot to keep an eye on. And it's not just the U.S. we need to be watching. The article also mentions some tension between India and Bangladesh. Diplomats getting summoned on both sides.
Right. It's a reminder that regional stability is always a bit fragile. Even small issues can escalate quickly.
True. But on a slightly brighter note, there's some optimism coming from the Middle East, where talks between Hamas and Israel seem to be moving forward.
Cautious optimism for sure, but in that part of the world, any progress is good progress. It shows that even in long-standing conflicts, there's always a chance for things to get better.
Okay, let's zoom in on corporate India for a bit. Stockbroking platform Grow is making headlines with their plans to go public.
They're looking to raise a massive $700 million, potentially reaching a valuation of $6 to $8 billion.
Wow, that's quite a jump. But the article mentions that new age brokerages like Grow are facing some challenges due to recent regulatory changes in the stock market.
Right. Changes aimed at curbing speculation. It could definitely impact their earnings in the future. It's a reminder that regulations can change the game for businesses, even in a booming market.
Speaking of changes, there's a trend I found interesting. Indian consumer companies are appointing CEOs with multinational backgrounds.
Yeah, the article mentions D-Mart, Tata Consumer Products, Godrej, and Jubilant FoodWorks. All big names opting for leaders with international experience.
What's driving this shift, do you think?
I think it's about bringing in a fresh perspective. These CEOs have a global outlook, different approaches to problem solving, and vast networks.
They're not just bringing themselves, they're bringing a whole new way of thinking.
Exactly. And it can really benefit Indian companies looking to grow and compete on a global scale.
Now, going back to Grow, they made an interesting decision to move their parent entity back to India from the U.S.
But it came with a hefty price tag, right? A $160 million tax bill to the U.S. government.
Wow, shows you the complexities of global business.
Mhm.
Tax laws, regulations, it's a lot to navigate.
Absolutely. And speaking of navigating, Grow's aiming for that IPO with a $6 to $8 billion valuation, more than double what they were worth just a few years ago.
Ambitious. But SEBI, the Securities and Exchange Board of India, they've been implementing new rules to try to stabilize the market and reduce speculation.
Right. Things like changing contract sizes for futures and options, adjusting expiry dates.
It's a balancing act for them, isn't it?
Correct.
Trying to keep things stable while encouraging growth.
Absolutely. And these changes are going to have a big impact on new age brokerages like Grow. They rely heavily on revenue from those types of trades. It'll be interesting to see how they adapt.
Adapting to survive is the name of the game. Okay, shifting gears completely, Prime Minister Modi inaugurated a new tunnel in Jammu and Kashmir today, the Zimor Tunnel, a 6.5-kilometer marvel of engineering.
It's designed to improve connectivity between Srinagar and Sonamarg, year-round access, even during those tough winter months. It's a big deal for the region.
More than just a tunnel, right? It's a symbol of progress.
Exactly. Opening up economic opportunities, promoting tourism, which is already booming there. It's about bringing hope to a region that's faced a lot of challenges.
Absolutely. But while things are looking up in Jammu and Kashmir, there's a different story across the border in Bangladesh. The Economic Times paints a picture of rising tensions, both internally and with India.
Right. There's talk of power struggles within the military, diplomatic summons on both sides. It's a reminder that regional stability can be very fragile.
And while those tensions are worrying, it's worth noting that a Pakistani trade delegation visited Dhaka recently, looking to boost economic ties.
Yeah, it's interesting. Even with all the political complexities, economic collaboration can be a bridge, a way to find shared interests and build a more stable future.
Definitely. Now back to this whole AI revolution. That prediction of global banks replacing nearly 200,000 jobs with AI in the next few years, it's a bit unsettling, even though we know it's coming.
It's a big shift, but like we said before, it's about understanding that AI is not here to replace all jobs. It's automating specific tasks, the repetitive ones.
So some jobs will be lost, but new ones will be created.
Exactly. And it's changing the skills that are in demand. People who can design, implement, manage AI systems, those who can analyze the data. Those are the jobs of the future.
It's a whole new way of working.
Absolutely. But this article about the FunkSec ransomware family, it's a reminder that there's a dark side to all this tech.
AI-assisted ransomware, using double extortion. They encrypt your data and threaten to release it publicly. It's like a digital hostage situation.
It's scary stuff, and it's a wake-up call, you know? We need to be serious about cybersecurity, strong passwords, two-factor authentication, backing up files regularly.
And being aware of the tactics these criminals use. Phishing, social engineering. We can't just rely on software. We have to be smart.
Right on. Okay, let's switch gears again. Looks like the logistics sector is attracting some serious investment.
Alta Capital's EcoBox Industrial Parks. just acquired a huge plot of land in Chennai to build a massive industrial and logistics park.
They're betting big on the growth of India's logistics sector. And for good reason.
E-commerce, manufacturing, supply chains are all modernizing.
Mhm.
We need the infrastructure to support that.
Right. And it's in line with the government's focus on infrastructure development. They want to improve connectivity and reduce transportation costs. And these kinds of investments will be key to achieving that.
It's all connected. Now, this is good news for the government. Direct tax collection is up almost 16% this fiscal year.
Healthy growth in tax revenue. It means the economy is doing well, people and companies are contributing, and the government has more resources to invest in important areas.
Positive signs all around. Now, this one caught my eye. Goldium International. The Economic Times calls it one of the multi-bagger stocks of 2024. Share price up a whopping 126%.
They've been on a tear. Goldium International, a big player in gold and diamond jewelry, strong financials, a growing order book, and they're expanding. Investors are loving it.
And as the global economy recovers, demand for luxury goods like jewelry will probably keep rising.
Exactly. Companies like Goldium are well positioned to ride that wave.
Okay, this next story is about Apple, and it could have big implications for consumer choice in the digital space.
Right, the trial in the UK over their App Store practices. They're being accused of abusing their dominance by charging developers those hefty fees.
That 30% commission on app sales and in-app purchases. The argument is that it's anti-competitive, hurts developers, and ultimately the cost gets passed on to us, the consumers.
It's a big case. It raises questions about fairness, transparency, and whether we really have choice in the digital world.
A lot at stake. Okay, back to a more hopeful story. Those talks between Hamas and Israel.
Yeah, officials are saying there's cautious optimism. They acknowledge there's still a long way to go, but any progress is a good thing.
It shows that even in the toughest situations, diplomacy can work. All right, this next one is about OpenAI, the folks behind ChatGPT. They're calling for the U.S. government to step up and regulate AI development.
They're saying, hey, let's invest in AI, but let's also make sure it's developed responsibly. They want to avoid potential harm while still allowing for innovation.
A balanced approach. Now, speaking of pushing boundaries, Jeff Bezos, the founder of Blue Origin, is confident about the future of space travel. He says there's room for multiple players in the space industry, including his own company and its rival, SpaceX.
Right. He's talking about collaboration, about the immense potential of space exploration, scientific discovery, commercial opportunities, even human settlements. It's a pretty exciting vision.
Definitely. Now, this next story has implications for global energy markets. The U.S. has announced new sanctions on Russia's oil industry.
Trying to pressure Russia over the situation in Ukraine. The sanctions aim to make it harder and more expensive for Russia to sell its oil.
But sanctions can have unintended consequences. This could disrupt global energy markets and lead to price increases for all of us.
It's a complicated situation, geopolitics and economics intertwined, and we often end up feeling the effects.
True. Okay, let's turn to a more somber story. The wildfires in Los Angeles.
Devastating. The death toll is rising, thousands of homes destroyed. It's a terrible reminder of how destructive nature can be.
And the impact on the community will be felt for a long time.
Yeah. It's about immediate aid, of course, but also learning from this. Fire prevention, urban planning, climate change mitigation. We have to adapt if we want to protect ourselves.
Absolutely. All right, let's take a break from the heavy stuff and jump into the world of sports. Barcelona is on fire. They just crushed Real Madrid in the Spanish Super Cup final.
5-2. They're unstoppable this season. It's a testament to their skill, their strategy, the way they play as a team.
Exhilarating to watch. Now back to the business world. Lenovo is doubling down on their production plans in India.
The Economic Times says they're aiming to double their smartphone and laptop production this year.
Taking advantage of that, Make in India push, and tapping into the growing demand for electronics here.
It's a win-win. More jobs for India, Lenovo gets to leverage our manufacturing capabilities. Everyone benefits.
Okay, last one for this section. It seems investors are getting a bit wary. The Nifty Next 50 index, which tracks mid-cap stocks, is now in bear territory.
Down over 20% from its peak. It's that global uncertainty, rising interest rates, worries about corporate earnings.
It's a reality check, a reminder that markets can be unpredictable.
Exactly. Important to have a solid investment strategy, diversify your portfolio, and think long-term.
Wise words. Well, that's a wrap for this section of our deep dive. Lots to digest, wouldn't you say?
Definitely. And it's only a fraction of what's in this paper. It's amazing how much is happening in the world every single day.
It is. And that's why we do these deep dives, to try and make sense of it all.
It is. And farm loan waivers, they're often done for political reasons, but they can really hurt the financial health of banks. It can have a ripple effect.
Right. It impacts their ability to lend to other important sectors, like agriculture. Could end up hurting the very people they're trying to help.
Exactly. It's complicated. Okay, shifting gears a bit. Remember Gensel electric vehicles? They hit a bit of a snag.
Oh, right. The company that makes those electric three-wheelers. What happened?
They tried to stop Mahindra, or rather Mahindra's subsidiary, from selling their electric four-wheeler, the EZEU. The Delhi High Court said nope. The court said the vehicles are in different categories, target different markets, no trademark infringement there.
So, a win for Mahindra.
Yeah, in a market that's getting more competitive by the day, it's a good reminder for companies to be careful with their branding, make sure their products are distinct.
Especially in the EV space, it's heating up. Okay, this is a bit concerning. Remember that AI-assisted ransomware we talked about earlier?
FunkSec, yeah, nasty piece of work. Over 85 attacks already.
And they use that double extortion tactic, right? Not only do they encrypt your data,
They threaten to release it if you don't pay. It's a nightmare scenario.
it really highlights how important cybersecurity is. For everyone, not just businesses. We need to be proactive.
Absolutely. Strong passwords, two-factor authentication, backups, those are the basics. But we also need to be aware of the tricks these guys use. Phishing scams, Don't click on suspicious links. Be careful what information you share online.
Right. Education is key.
Yeah.
Okay. Looks like the logistics sector is booming.
Big investments pouring in. Alta Capital's EcoBox Industrial Parks just bought 50 acres of land in Chennai. They're going to build a massive industrial and logistics park.
That's huge. Why the sudden interest in logistics?
Well, think about it. E-commerce is exploding, manufacturing is growing, supply chains are becoming more complex. We need modern, efficient facilities to handle it all.
And the government's been pushing for infrastructure development, right?
Exactly. They want to improve connectivity, lower transportation costs. These kinds of projects fit right in with that vision.
Speaking of the government, they're probably smiling about this next piece of news. Direct tax collection is up almost 16% so far this fiscal year.
That's a good sign. Means the economy's doing well. People and businesses are earning more, paying more taxes, gives the government more resources to work with.
Positive news all around. Now, this one caught my attention. The Economic Times calls Goldiem International one of the hottest stocks of 2024. A multi-bagger, they call it. Share price up over 126%.
Wow, that's impressive. What do they do?
Gold and diamond jewelry. They've got strong financials, a growing order book, and they're expanding their operations.
Makes sense. As the global economy recovers, people have more money to spend on luxury items.
Right. Now, this next story involves Apple and a legal battle that could have big implications for the app economy.
The trial in the UK, right, over their App Store policies.
Yeah. Developers are accusing them of abusing their dominant position by charging those high fees, that 30% commission on app sales and in-app purchases.
Right. The argument is that it's anti-competitive, stifles innovation, and that the cost ultimately gets passed on to consumers.
It'll be interesting to see how this plays out. It could have a significant impact on how app stores operate globally.
Definitely. Okay, let's switch gears again. Back to those Hamas-Israel talks.
Any progress?
It's a tough situation, a long history of conflict and mistrust. But officials from both sides are saying there's some cautious optimism.
That's good to hear. Even a small step towards peace is a step in the right direction.
Absolutely. Okay, this next story is about OpenAI, the folks who created ChatGPT. They're urging the U.S. government to invest more in AI, but also to regulate it more effectively.
To make sure it's developed responsibly, right?
Exactly. They acknowledge the potential benefits of AI, but they also recognize the potential risks. They want to strike a balance.
Makes sense. You can't just let things run wild.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Jeff Bezos, the founder of Blue Origin, has been talking about the future of space travel. He says there's room for multiple players in the space industry, including his own company and SpaceX, which is run by Elon Musk.
Interesting. So he's not seeing it as a winner-take-all kind of thing.
Right. He's talking about collaboration, about the vast potential of space exploration, scientific discoveries, commercial opportunities, even the possibility of human settlements. It's a pretty grand vision.
It is. Okay, this next story has global implications. The U.S. government is imposing new sanctions on Russia's oil industry.
Trying to pressure them over what's happening in Ukraine, right?
Exactly. The sanctions aim to make it harder and more expensive for Russia to sell its oil.
But we've talked about this before. Sanctions can have unintended consequences. could disrupt global energy markets and lead to price hikes for everyone.
Right. It's a delicate balancing act, trying to achieve a political objective without causing too much economic damage.
Okay, this next story is a tough one. Those devastating wildfires in Los Angeles.
Terrible situation.
Mhm.
The death toll is rising, thousands of homes have been destroyed. It's a reminder of how powerful nature can be.
And how important it is to be prepared.
Absolutely. We need to think about fire prevention, urban planning, how we build our cities in a way that's more resilient to these kinds of disasters, and of course, climate change is a huge factor.
Right, these events are becoming more frequent and intense. Okay, let's lighten things up a bit. Barcelona is dominating the football world. They just crushed Real Madrid in the Spanish Super Cup final.
5-2. They're looking unstoppable this season. It's incredible to watch. Their talent, their strategy, the way they work together. It's a masterclass in teamwork.
Okay, back to the business world. Lenovo is really investing in India. They're planning to double their smartphone and laptop production here this year.
Smart move. They're taking advantage of the Make in India initiative, tapping into a growing market and creating jobs.
It's a win-win.
Yeah.
Okay, last one for this section, the financial markets. It seems investors are getting a bit jittery.
Yeah, the Nifty Next 50 index, which tracks mid-cap stocks, has entered bear territory.
Down more than 20% from its high.
It's that global uncertainty, rising interest rates, worries about corporate earnings. It's all adding up.
Makes you realize that even when things seem to be going well, you can't take it for granted.
Exactly. You always have to be prepared for the unexpected.
All right, we're going to take a short break, but when we come back, we'll continue our deep dive into the economic times, looking at everything from Johnson & Johnson's big acquisition to those ongoing negotiations between Hamas and Israel. We'll also explore the growing calls for responsible AI development and the challenges facing Apple's App Store. Stay tuned. All right, welcome back to our deep dive into today's economic times. We've got a lot more to cover, so let's jump right back in. We left off talking about the financial markets and those concerns about the global economy.
Right, investors getting a little cautious. And the Nifty Next 50, that index for mid-cap stocks, well, it's officially in bear territory.
A drop of over 20% from its high. Makes you think.
It does. Shows how quickly things can change. One minute, everything's booming. The next, people are pulling back.
Exactly. Now, this next story is about Johnson & Johnson, the pharmaceutical giant. They've made a major acquisition.
Intracellular Therapies, a company that develops treatments for central nervous system disorders. J&J paid a hefty price, too. Almost $14.6 billion.
That's a lot of money. What's behind this move?
Well, Intracellular Therapies focuses on conditions like bipolar depression and schizophrenia, areas where there's a huge need for new and better treatments.
And those are conditions that are becoming more prevalent, right?
Yeah.
The demand for those treatments is only going to increase.
Exactly. So J&J is strategically positioning themselves in a market that's set to grow significantly in the coming years. It's a smart move.
Makes sense. Now let's talk about Apple again. They're facing a legal challenge in the UK over their App Store policies. Specifically, those fees they charge developers.
Yeah, that 30% commission on app sales and in-app purchases. The argument is that it's too high, anti-competitive, and that it ultimately hurts consumers because the costs get passed on.
It's a big deal. This case could really change how app stores operate, not just for Apple, but for everyone.
It could set a precedent. The whole app economy is watching this case very closely.
Definitely. Okay, shifting gears now. Remember those talks between Hamas and Israel?
Yeah, a really tough situation. Years of conflict, deep mistrust on both sides.
But any progress is good progress, right?
Absolutely. And officials are actually saying there's some cautious optimism. They acknowledge the challenges, but the fact that they're talking, trying to find common ground, is a positive sign.
It gives you hope.
Yeah.
Okay, now let's talk about AI again. The organization behind ChatGPT, OpenAI, is urging the U.S. government to do more to regulate AI development.
They're saying, hey, we need to invest in AI research, but we also need to make sure it's developed responsibly. They're trying to strike that balance.
It's a powerful technology with the potential to do a lot of good, but also with the potential for harm if it's not handled carefully.
Right. They want to prevent misuse, make sure AI is used for the benefit of humanity. It's an important conversation to have.
Absolutely. Now, speaking of pushing boundaries, Jeff Bezos, the founder of Blue Origin, has been talking about his vision for space travel. He believes there's room for multiple players in the space industry, including his own company and SpaceX.
He sees a future where space travel is more accessible, opening up all sorts of possibilities, scientific research, commercial ventures, maybe even human settlements on other planets.
It's a pretty amazing vision. It makes you realize how much potential there is out there. Okay, this next story has implications for the global economy. The U.S. has imposed new sanctions on Russia's oil industry.
Aimed at pressuring Russia over their actions in Ukraine. The goal is to make it harder and more expensive for them to sell their oil, disrupt their exports.
But sanctions are a double-edged sword. They could impact global energy markets, lead to higher prices for everyone. It's a delicate situation.
Absolutely. Trying to achieve a political goal without causing too much economic fallout is never easy.
Okay, one last story, and it's a somber one. The wildfires in Los Angeles.
Devastating. The death toll is rising, thousands of homes lost. The impact on the community is immense. It's heartbreaking.
A reminder of the power of nature and how important it is to be prepared for these kinds of disasters. We need to be thinking about fire prevention, how we build our cities, and of course, climate change is playing a role, making these events more frequent and intense.
It's a wake-up call for all of us. Well, that brings us to the end of our deep dive into today's economic times.
Wow, what a journey. From global markets to AI and space exploration, from political tensions to devastating wildfires, it's amazing how much is happening in the world every single day.
It is, and it just shows you how important it is to stay informed, to understand the forces that are shaping our world and our lives.
Right. But it's also important to take a break from the news sometimes, to step back and appreciate the good things in life.
Absolutely. Find that balance. Stay informed, but don't let it consume you.
Great advice. Well, thanks for joining me on this deep dive. Until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and stay engaged with the world around you.